Well, BG, here we are again. Another day and another boat going to the dump. This is what happens when you don't look after your boat. I come and take it.
Adam probably should change his philosophy just a little bit on this one. Sure, if people don't look after their boat, Adam and the boys over at Coldwater come and grab it, but I'll tell you what, there are plenty of other people out there that he probably should go take their boats as well because they don't know what they're doing on the water, and today we'll focus on those guys. Welcome back, crew, to this week's episode of Boneheaded Boaters of the Week. And speaking of taking boats, somebody should go ahead and take this guy's boat. He's over there in the marina playing the old arcade game of boat pinball, which is never a good idea. Now, sometimes it's tough to tell whether something's a fail or a win in boating, kind of like this guy. I've seen no fewer than a dozen videos of this guy towing this formula with this Lexus, and every single time it looks just a little sus because the vehicle's rated nowhere near being able to tow this, yet somehow every single time, this guy finds a way to get the boat down into the water and then also finds a way to get it pulled out with this vehicle, which is making me start to think that it's not quite the fail that we often think it might be, and more that the guy actually kind of knows what he's doing. And then you run into somebody like this who you can obviously tell has no earthly clue what they're doing and shouldn't be out there on the water. I mean, I'm not sure which one of these guys came up with this idea and said, hey, you're stuck on the sandbar, let's just go ahead and lock anchors and we'll see how it turns out. I mean, the reality is it kind of reminds me of Ghostbusters, bro. You're not supposed to cross the streams. But the worst part of this is there's people standing within slingshot view of this. In other words, if one of these lines snaps, that anchor's probably coming back at somebody, but it gets worse the more you look at it. We've got people standing down by the engine trying to push. It's just an absolute mess. And this is one of the reasons I preach to you guys all the time. Just go ahead and get the tow insurance. It is much cheaper to have tow insurance than it is to pay somebody's medical bills if something goes wrong. And speaking of things going wrong and boats that should be taken away, our guy right here powering back into the tube, motor on, kids and people on the tube. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. The worst part of this is we missed the front end action where the guy actually ran that boat up onto the dock. Now, as we mentioned earlier, sometimes it's a little difficult to tell if somebody's failing or winning out there on the water, but sometimes it is apparently obvious if somebody's pulling off a fail or a win, kind of like this situation right here, and our next situation's a pretty obvious fail as well. But the tough part of this one's I can't tell which fail is worse. The fact that the guy let the truck somehow go down the ramp and into the water, or the fact that the tow truck driver somehow decided to pull this truck out like this. Surely there had to be a better way than pulling it out upside down on its roof. Now, another one of those situations that can be a little confusing from time to time, whether it's a fail or a win, is when you see a boat out there spinning donuts. Yes, it sounds like a good time, but when there's nobody on the boat, that's your sign that it was a fail, and somebody should have been wearing the safety kill switch lanyard, which is a pretty big mistake. Speaking of big mistakes, the pros make mistakes too. Now, the only difference between when the pros make mistakes and we make mistakes is when we make mistakes, it usually is something simple. Maybe we forgot to tie a line right. Maybe we forgot to put the drain plug in and hopefully we catch it before things get too out of hand. When the pros make mistakes, typically they're a little bigger and definitely a little more expensive. But this goes to show you that not even the pros get out there and do it right every single day. Every once in a while, the pros get out there and make a mistake. The difference is if the pros get out there and make a mistake and it's really their fault, they probably lose their license. Most of us, if we get out there and make a mistake on a boat, we just go back out and do it again the next day, unless we can find a way to get those boats taken away from those boneheads. But don't get me wrong, boneheaded boaters, if they even lose their boats, they'll still find a way to get out there on the water, hoon it up with the best of them, and have a good time, and still let things go wrong. Thanks for watching, crew. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Boneheaded Boaters of the Week. If you ever see anything crazy happening out on your waterways, be sure to hit us up on Facebook or Instagram and let us know, and you might see your stories over here. Just like Procat Ketcherov, Kerman Turan, Adam Coolidge, Captain Hodge, On an Adventure, Van Zach, Pig Farmer Ben, and Bragg Klieg did this week. And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and drop an anchor on the subscribe button here.